So January 6th of this year, the riot on Capitol Hill. This has been exaggerated, hyped, and sensationalized, I believe, by the left so they can achieve even more political power and tarnish those who oppose them. That said, there were some bad things that happened that day, and I would like to know more. But this commission they're talking about may not be a fair one at all. Let's bring in our panel. We have Mark Meadows with us, former member of Congress, former White House Chief of Staff to Donald Trump. Welcome, sir. And also Tom Fitton, president of Judicial Watch, who has been seeking critical information in this case and meeting a lot of resistance. Welcome, gentlemen. Mark, first to you. What is the problem with the commission that they're talking about right now? It seems like it's not an earnest effort to find out everything we need to know.
Well, it's all about political theater. I mean, Tom, I'm sure will back me up on this, but what we see is these made-for-TV quote commissions and hearings that go on. They're not really about finding the truth, and the truth of the matter is they need to ask themselves some very tough questions, like why didn't Nancy Pelosi reach out? To my knowledge, she never reached out to the Trump White House. But listen, this is the only thing Democrats have. They have open borders. We have no jobs. We have no peace in the Middle East. And so this is the only issue that they can grab onto. So this is all about political theater, not about getting to the truth.
Well, Tom, I know you're seeking information, but before we get to that, the 9/11 Commission, I actually thought that did a pretty good job. You know, it was bipartisan. They found out a lot of things that we want to know. When I look at this legislation authorizing the commission, they're already right off the bat talking about domestic terrorism. And I'm told that this will specifically preclude us from finding out about what happened to Ashley Babbitt, why it happened, how it happened. Do you have a problem with this legislation?
Yeah, if it were political theater, that's what happens on Capitol Hill, political theater. That's, you have investigations or committee hearings. We all know what that's about. The concern is that, especially under Nancy Pelosi, this Congress will weaponize its powers further to target its political opposition under the guise of investigating what's plainly happening here, which was a riot among certain people. We have the video of it happening. They want to go beyond that in the sense of trying to tie the president's political opposition or people who he thinks are his political opposition and harass them with subpoenas and such. Remember, it was this House of Representatives that we're fighting now over a subpoena they issued secretly for the phone records of the president's lawyer without court authorization, and they're saying they have the power to do that. I oppose this because it is a clear and present danger to our constitutional liberties. They haven't used this for political gain. They've used this to abuse power and our civil liberties. And this commission, in my view, given the background of the folks behind this, is part of that game.
Well, it's too bad because there are some valid questions. Mark, if you don't mind, I want to take us through a couple of things that I need answered. And I think we as Americans need answered. Who is this cop who seemed to be letting people in? We saw numerous videos like this. This officer is encouraging, directing people onto the steps of the Capitol. We saw it also closer to the Capitol, the barricades being dismantled and people encouraged to come through right here in the next clip. And then later you actually see people walking right by Capitol Hill police who are doing nothing to stand in their way or even encourage them to turn around. It's just kind of welcome to the Capitol. Come on in. These things have not been adequately addressed, Mark, as far as I can tell.
Well, they haven't been adequately addressed, but I can tell you, Tom's exactly right. Not only is this hearing and this commission not set up in a way to get to the truth, but the conclusion's already been drafted. Let's face it, Nancy Pelosi, her progressive leftist Democrat colleagues have already written the narrative. They've written the conclusion. They're looking for some legitimate way to be able to continue this on without answering the very questions that you were talking about. Who were were the officers that were involved in that? And ultimately, when we look at this whole narrative, they only have January 6th. That's all they've got, because they have no ideas. And at the end of the day, I don't see it being meaningful. I served on the Oversight Committee, as Tom and you both know, and I can tell you that most of what they will do is just make 4 or 5 minute speeches for television in hopes of continuing a false narrative.
You mentioned both political theater. Here's Congressman Tim Ryan, Democrat of Ohio, who ran for president, believe it or not, in the last cycle. Political theater, here it is.
I want to thank the gentleman from New York and the other Republicans who are supporting this, and thank them for their bipartisanship. To the other 90% of our friends on the other side of the aisle, holy cow, incoherence. No idea what you're talking about. We have people scaling the Capitol, hitting the Capitol Police with lead pipes across the head, and we can't get bipartisanship. What else has to happen in this country? Cops. This is a slap in the face to every rank and file cop in the United States. We need 2 political parties in this country that are both living in reality, and you ain't one of them.
You know, it's totally ridiculous. And by the way, law enforcement, Officer Sicknick, they lied about him. He was a hero the day he volunteered for that job, but they lied about him. He was not killed by Trump supporters. He had a medical episode, and they have still not come clean. I only have a few seconds left. Final thoughts, Tom, if you don't mind.
Heal thyself, physician. We're asking for information about what went on. We've had to go to federal court. The Capitol Hill Police is covering up what went on. The lack of disclosure and secrecy can be addressed immediately, but of course they don't want to do that because they don't want to focus on themselves. They want to focus on citizens. This is a dangerous time we're living in.
Tom Fitton, we're glad you're on the case, and Mark Meadows, you too. We appreciate it so much. To be continued.